on my profile to see if we're live. According to what the Amigo is saying, we are. So, let's get a wide shot. Let's get a wide shot. Right? Pass that now. We're live now, according to what you see on Facebook. So we're on my Facebook. I'm going to make sure that everybody's seeing this now on Facebook live. Yes, we are. Okay? So, good evening, Trinidad and Tobago, and the wider world paying attention to this broadcast tonight. We're experiencing all of our teething pains at one time. Our situation, you need to mute that. All of the little things that are going to bother us are going to bother us tonight. We're going to overcome them. We already have 200 people viewing, so good night to everybody. I'd like to introduce the panel for tonight's show: Suzette Loa, Ken Biscom from Tobago, and Janice, Damon, Jennifer, Creaky. Are those all of your names?
Correct.
In the wrong order?
Good, that's fine. That's fine.
You just happy that I made it up.
Yes.
Right. So it is our intention to be doing a Thursday night panel on major issues going forward from here. And tonight's show, while it is a big issue, the budget, is also our first attempt at doing this in this location. The space that we had set up couldn't accommodate it tonight. We'll be better prepared next week, Thursday, and early in the week next week you will know what the topics are. But tonight's topic for this hour is the issue of the national budget read in the Parliament on Monday, October the 2nd. It's caused a bit of a furor in the country, as everybody would be aware. There are multiples of protests planned for tomorrow, including the Progressive Empowerment Party, and we're coming out there for noon. I know a lot of people are coming out from 8, 8:30 and 9 in the morning. We are coming out from noon. We'll be doing our own live from the outside the Parliament and the waterfront. But right now, let's drill down into the issues that have a lot of people so incensed with this budget. And I want to say to the panel, and good night to you all, and I want to say that I have never seen a budget in my lifetime upset rich and poor alike. This budget he's going to have some editing to do.
I definitely think so.
I asked Ken to come across from Tobago because Tobago is one of the places hardest hit by Hurricane Kong, and I want Ken to weigh in on this issue from a Tobago perspective more than anything else, because while Ken, in his significant capacity in the Progressive Empowerment Party, is responsible for constituency build-out, part of the party organization team for the whole country. He's based in Tobago. He's been in business in Tobago for the past 25 years, and he's a member of the Tobago Chamber of Commerce, I believe. So Ken, what you could take it from there. I mean, at the end of the day, what's the Tobago perspective on what's going on with this budget?
It's interesting that you should ask, Philip, because the Secretary for Finance, who is George Jack in Tobago, yesterday said that it's a budget is fine. So in his estimation, it's not a bad budget, and without making any real serious comment on it, because in reality, the economy in Tobago has been reeling from devastation for the last 10 years almost. And as you know, the budget for Tobago is a mere $2.2 billion. And out of that $2.2 billion, $1.8 billion is going to be the current expenditure. $316 million they've put aside for capital expenditure, and $18 million for URP.
And I need to pause for a second. We are getting responses for audio. So we are going to have to speak up, and you're going to have to roll forward. So let's see, I don't know how that's going to, you're going to have to monitor how that affects the video. Again, we apologize. This was where we intended to be operating from. So just push the whole situation forward. I think that we're getting, put the mic closer. All right, very. Dave Jagrup just asked us to remove the Blue Waters. Blue Waters is not our sponsor for the live tonight. This is just the water that we have. People are asking for more volume. We moved it closer and we're going to speak up. Tell me what you think now with regards to the audio, because the audio goes in through the actual Nego. So you still stay where you are and focus on controlling the video section of it. How are we going? How are we going with the views and stuff? You could push the Nego forward a little bit and still maintain the size of the image on the screen, right? So you're testing the audio now. Please tell me, Dave Jagrup, I want you to tell me a little better. He says a little bit better. Felicia, I want you to try again to push the actual device closer while still maintaining the video. See how it's affecting the video size? You come forward as much as you could without affecting the video size too much. Was my audio sounding like? You say a little better. I want you to, if you could, is it affecting the video size for you to manage there? We're losing the people on the extremes. See if you could open up the screen itself, because it has good peripheral vision. Yeah? You getting them? Alright, so we're going to need to try and get closer, Ken. And we'll accommodate everybody here. Again, teething pains. And we're going to go through it. Yeah? So, to those of you now joining us, we apologize for the little teething pains that we had. You can't widen that screen any more than it is now. That's it there. But if you need it, so that you can come a little closer. No, we're good there? We're good. And producer says we're good. Director, Alan calls it director. Alright, so a little better from Quebec. Thanks a lot. Who said that? Gray. Thanks a lot, Gray. Okay, so we have a nice audience and they're watching. What is and I just need, alright, all of you don't play director tonight, yeah? Don't tell us to adjust the camera. What I need you to tell us is, are you hearing us? Because I need to get that. Yeah, video is good. Richard says move to the right a little bit. We're getting some more lights and the boom is coming in. I'm getting some hearts. Are these hearts saying that the volume is good? Are we good with volume? I want everybody to respond on Facebook now for me for the next minute and tell me if this is sufficient audio for you, please. I'm getting words like nice. Screen is fine and audio is okay. I'm seeing 4 of you very clearly. Audio good. Excellent. We're going to jump back into it while the technical team puts together the additional lighting. As I said, we're apologizing for this, but this is the birth of a new social media phenomenon. Pep Talks on a Thursday night is going to be a panel show, and by the second or third one we will have it down tight, like my live video. The first couple times I started it, I wasn't even looking in the right direction. So I know that we will figure this out as we go, and right now the technical team are putting up the lights that for the last 5 minutes of the show will be brighter than we are now. But forgetting that and sticking a pin in that, because we're here to discuss the budget, and also if there's anybody with an ambulance close by, we might need you. There's a lot of stuff going on in the back there. And do not fall on our director. Right. Ken, back to you. Let's see if we could dance in a rainstorm. You tell me. Back to Tobago. Back to Tobago, yes. I want the technical team to know that we are in fact live right now. So if you could just limit the construction sounds, it would be excellent. Yes, Ken, over to you.
Right, as you know, Philip.
And you need to project and speak a little louder.
As you know, Philip, and the rest of our viewers out there, tourism is Tobago's main industry, and it has been for the last 20 years or so. Actually, initially it used to be fishing in Tobago, and tourism overtook fishing many years ago and was the mainstay up until, I would say, 2005, and then by the time 2007, there were certain decisions made that totally undermined the tourism industry in Tobago, and we have been on a downward slide ever since. I mean, to date we have several hotels that have been closed foreclosed on, bankrupt, that the THA have had to acquire, like for example, Mantle Lodge in Speyside.
Sorry, I just need to interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
And we get compliments on your natural skin tone. Let me tell you something, our social media audience are the best. But do not forget, please, to be sharing the video with all its bumps and curly corners. We still need to be able to get this message out there because we're going to be dealing with the issue. And I think that this Thursday panel might have to also be done, follow up next week, maybe. But right now, yeah, so please, all of you out there, do not forget to share the video to all the pages and all the groups. Sorry about that, Ken. Over to you.
So the tourism industry has been on a negative slide since 2007 and it has not recovered. We went from having a high of 88,000 European visitors, let's say, to Tobago, down to 19,000 in 2016. Now, for some reason, the government doesn't seem to think that is a problem because they've done nothing whatsoever to try to fix that. And for us to now have a $2.2 billion budget with $1.8 billion going to recurrent expenditure and $316 million going to capital expenditure, it just says that they are not really making any serious effort to rebuild the main industry in Tobago, which is tourism. Yeah?
Right, I heard today that that someone who has and I know he is a member of the party, and I heard that his 36-room hotel has 0 occupancy.
Yes, 0.
Based on what you're saying, Ken, from the last 10 years in terms of using tourism as a tool for encouraging the growth of the hospitality industry, what changes would you have made between the 10-year period and now? Or what changes you would have suggested that the government has not been paying attention to?
Well, a few things that really devastated Tobago. There used to be something called the Landholding Act, which they allowed foreigners to come and purchase land in Tobago, which A&R Robinson had put in place. It was a nice way of stimulating the economy because what happened, a lot of Europeans came in, purchased lands, and began building nice villas and homes, and they use it as their second or what you call a summer home to get away to. And it was very nice, it was working. Then they were bringing their families and friends, it was going nicely. Then, for some reason, crime began becoming a problem. There were a lot of vicious rapes, murders, robberies against tourists, and nothing was being done about it. They were not catching anybody. And as we know, sometimes people understand it would be a crime, but they want the perpetrator to be caught and prosecuted and dealt with. And many of them felt very disappointed that the government didn't do enough to fix that problem. So many of them stopped coming back to Tobago. They've told their friends and families, don't come to Tobago. As a matter of fact, we've had such a poor publicity out there, as far away as New Zealand, their government telling their people, don't come to Tobago because it's not safe. Almost every country in North America and in Europe put out advisories saying don't go to Tobago after we had some very vicious, gruesome murders. In my view, right now, to revive Tobago, what they need to do is educate the population, because one of the things I find that was missing is the educating of the population about tourism, the importance of it, and the role that everyone plays in it, so that they can now have buy-in to it. And I'm speaking about from the primary school level right now.
Yeah, but I want to ask a question. I want to ask, where did this Tobago for Tobagonians come from? Where did that whole idea that foreigners weren't beneficial to Tobago? Was there a cap? Was there a limit? Were there ways and means by which foreigners, were there any hoops or hurdles they had to jump through to be able to access land? And I have to ask that question because, I mean, you have countries, massive countries, and I want to use the Chinese example, that if you don't have some sort of restriction, you can own a country one property at a time. And you need, and I wanted guidance on that from a Tobago perspective, because I knew that Tobagonians, that's a lot of light. That is a lot of light. I think I'm seeing inside my eyeball. And for this year, Dilwood said that the panoramic view is sufficient and that you shouldn't stress trying to zoom. That's from Dilwood, so I'm passing that on to you. Dilwood, Felicia's message, I can't say it to you. A response. No, but in all honesty, to all of those of you who are now joining us, this is our first panel discussion, We plan to do this regularly every Thursday. And we're going to deal with national issues. Like the live video that happens every night, we want the Thursday night video to be a panel discussion, and you will meet different members of the party with different responsibilities in the national conversation that will engage you in a conversation. Like how we continue to allow everyone to share their information here and we bring it back out there. We're also going to be able to take calls. Tonight's panel discussion is all about the budget, and I got Ken's Tobago perspective, and I want to ask Janice. Janice, what were your takeaways from this budget?
I thought it was a budget that was totally unfair to the people. Reason being, because some of the things that the minister has brought up are not new ideas. What are the, with respect to, let's say, the used tire industry, why is Peter paying for Paul? Why is the government, knowing that there was corruption and tax evasion, why did they not deal with those issues? But instead, you have now put a further burden on the citizens who use used tires. Another thing too is this whole thing of the amount of money being spent on the roadway, the hospitals, the new hospitals. Now we have 3 hospitals that are in dire need of medical supplies. And yet
Actually, don't forget Tobago.
For 4.
Don't forget Scarborough.
4.
I think all Trinidadians forget Scarborough.
Yes,
True,
they do.
true.
I'm sorry, Tobago.
No, that's not you alone.
But-
He put me in mind with that.
Yes. So we have 4 hospitals that are in dire need of repair, medical staff, medical supplies. But you're spending billions of dollars on putting up 3 hospitals. You're commissioning one actually, which is in Couva, and you're finishing Point Forte, and you're now doing Arima. I don't understand it. You've also now gone and increased the license fee to private hospitals. What is that going to do to the citizens who are struggling every month to pay their insurance, to be able to get proper medical care, because we are not getting it at the current hospitals,
Public hospitals.
at the public hospitals? And what are you doing? I am just so disheartened.
I wanted to ask you a question since this morning, because I noticed when you raised the issue about the used tires and his indicting everybody in the industry.
Right.
But I wanted to ask, this corruption that he said,
Yes.
this evasion, could only take place with the acquiescence of Customs and Excise.
Correct.
So did he say that our Customs and Excise Department is corrupt?
No.
And no, he didn't say it. So he
Right.
implied it. And how does a tax change that?
It does not. It's not going to change it.
How
It's
does
just
a
going to
tax
find
address a
another
culture of corruption in customs?
Correct.
I was totally surprised that he actually would, rather than saying I'm going to go after the lawbreakers, he says I'm going to just put a tax on the used tires at 30% across the board for everyone.
Yeah, no. It works with Customs and Excise. I think the entire department division needs to be overhauled. First of all, it is entirely inefficient. A lot is left up to the discretion of customs officers, and more times than often, it is at the discretion of an officer based on intended values. And I'll give you an example. You may have an invoice, for example, your supplier has sold you a product at a 30% discount in effort to liquidate a product out of an obsolete product from a warehouse. And what happens with customs is that they will tell you, we are charging you your duties and your VAT based on the original value. So whatever price you were able to negotiate on behalf of your company,
Right.
customs do not take that price into consideration. Their calculation is based on the original price. So what you are forced to do as a business person, they are forcing you to become dishonest. Because what is happening is now you're going to have to leave that original price out of the invoice. You're going to have to ask them to structure it with the discounted price only.
Mm-hmm.
And systems like those are antiquated systems. They need to be changed, they need to be revised, and in order for you to have equitable business in this country and efficient, profitable business in this country, customs play a very integral role in that, and it needs to be changed.
Why did the controller of customs and everyone below him allow the Minister of Finance to paint all of them with a corrupt brush? Because for there to be evasion of duties and taxes at the import stage, the only people that impact that is customs.
That's right. And
Yes.
another thing is, you
So
would
are we
find
accepting? Are we accepting the Minister of Finance position that customs and excise is corrupt?
Well, we
Because
have
that is
to-
what he's implying.
I would have
Correct.
to, I mean,
You have to,
I
yes.
hold the Minister of Finance in very little regard, but I would have to agree with him because I'm a business person and I am involved on a very personal level with customs and excise almost on a weekly basis. I can tell you, for instance, you have customs and excise where they rotate officers.
Right.
And so when they rotate officers at a bond, what you find happening is sometimes you may have had an agreement with customs and excise, but a new officer does not know what the procedure is that you've negotiated for your business. And that is, of course, within the parameters of the law. What happens then is you are now faced with a week delay because you have to explain this process again to a new officer who will send it to the head office to get
Right.
approval and that sort of
that is
bureaucracy.
insane.
It is
That's
insane. And what happens is when this system is allowed to take reign over the holidays, like with the Christmas season when businesses depend so heavily on merchandise coming in for trade, you find that you are not able to clear your merchandise in under 2 weeks. And that means that you have had lost opportunity, and opportunity lost is a cost.
Correct.
So customs has a very deep and real impact on the productivity and the economic well-being of Trinidad and Tobago, and that needs to be dealt with expeditiously.
I gather what you're saying, and I respect what you're saying. I remember, I mean, we could, that could be the topic for the night. Just speak about all of the feelings of the import sector and everything that happens on the port and through customs. I mean, it's a wonder people stay in business in this country. But I still want to ask the question. If you're the Minister of Finance, he made some allegations in this budget reading, and I'm wondering if the Commissioner of Police and the Director of Public Prosecutions have abandoned their jobs. Because he made some allegations and some accusations. He is implying that customs across the board is corrupt, and the only way for him to deal with it is with a heavy hand, tax everybody into oblivion, and hope to catch some money. So it's a kind of trickle-down budgeting.
Yes.
He said, and I've been asking, he said that the Housing Development Corporation was corrupt. He said that the Minister of Housing and that everybody in housing was corrupt, and that they were stealing $500,000 per house to the tune of billions of dollars. He said that, and no one has said anything, no one has taken action. And this is what I took away from the budget. These allegations and accusations that were made, that are now part of the national record, that are in the Hansard, whose responsibility is it now to come and say, Mr. Controller of Customs, you have to answer for this. Do we get an inquiry? Do we get a commission inquiry into it? Do we get a police investigation? What is the go forward from here?
Well, who has those answers? We need to know, as the people, force the government's hand. We need to find out when are those questions going to be answered, when are those issues going to be addressed, and whether or not anything is going to come out of this. Because as long as you propagate corruption, you cannot have an efficient economy.
Well, the thing about it as well is that this has been going on for how many years? 55 years? And to date, we cannot seem to get anywhere. So what do? We have to vote in a party that is going to do something about it.
The state machinery is amiss. If you can have a budget that says TNTech is not paying, and WASA is not paying, and Petrotrin is not paying, so the solution to all of that mismanagement and the solution to all of that debt is to further tax the citizenry. It's madness.
It's madness.
The entire budget is an insane budget, and Trinidad and Tobago, from every level of society, needs to reject this budget.
I think
The budget as read, if this passes into law, will spiral inflation out of control. The people are going to be hit on all sides.
Yes.
The banks are going to pass that tax on to the customer. The hospital is going to pass that tax on to the customer. This new property tax that you want to unleash will make it impossible for some people to keep their homes because you're limited, whatever, and the salaried worker is the person in trouble here. The person on a fixed income, the retiree and the salaried worker in trouble because you've hit them on multiple fronts. You've depleted whatever residual funds they had, and now you're coming to tax their property. This is going to throw people down.
Correct. Especially the pensioners. Because when they had that situation with the pensioners in Woodbrook where one person got charged for putting her garbage out on the sidewalk, and she was told she had to pay, I think it was about a fee of $500. I mean, she was devastated because, I mean, she's getting a very small income every month as it is, and to put out $500 in this fine was, I mean, very traumatic for her. So far less for all these new taxes that they have now introduced, and the inflation in terms of food prices, which everybody's going to be affected. What is going to happen?
Trinidad and Tobago need to respond to this. Trinidad and Tobago need to come out. We're not going to have many opportunities. This is not one of those things that you're supposed to allow to become a fait accompli, because
Right.
you will sink on your own. And you will watch neighbors sink alone. And I want to tell you, this is something that we have to address as a people.
I agree.
Many people are suffering right now in Tobago and
Yes.
in Trinidad.
I was actually getting back to Tobago.
Everyone seems to be silent.
Yes.
You know, they're afraid to speak up.
Mhm.
And so they're suffering in little silos in their own little corners, and for a number of
But
reasons.
tomorrow at noon, we are going to the parliament to say no. We're not serving them nothing. We're not handing them any documents. We, the people, are coming to the People's Parliament where those workers work. The Minister of Finance is a worker that works for the people. And the people who employ him are coming to tell him, no, we do not agree with that budget. It is wrong. It is wrong at the conception stage, and we're not going to let you give birth to that kind of inflation. We are going to have to address this as a population. It is time for Trinidadians to stop being distracted by bacchanal politics and come together. And we're providing that opportunity tomorrow, because we're going there. We're going there to say no, and that is your House of Representatives. The supreme law of the country, the Constitutional Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, before it recognizes Prime Minister, President, Priest or Police, it recognizes the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And the people of Trinidad and Tobago need to have a say here. Suzette, you were going to say something.
The Minister of Finance presented a budget that, from my point of view, clearly indicates that it was a haphazard attempt of trying to give the people some sort of assurance that they spent time to put together something as useless as what they consider to be the 2017 budget. They have not looked at any sort of initiatives for diversification. We are constantly basing our economic survival on fossil fuels, and we're not looking at diversification from the standpoint of food independence, food security, tourism as a marketable product, tourism as one of the incentives that you give to students and say, take tourism, come with a pilot project, bring it to the people, and let's see if we can work. Involve the people in the entire dynamic process of managing the economy. If you have never had to manage a household on a limited budget, you cannot understand what the people is experiencing at this point in time. We need to make it clear to the government that our families, we have reached a stage where our families, their well-being is at stake. And unless we say something, we're telling the government that we are accepting that they are abusive to our families. And when you look at your children and you look at your parents and your siblings, and you tell me honestly that you can accept that an abusive government is the government that you need to have in power.
Well said. And the reality of the situation, and we left this point alone, but the impact of the foreign exchange regime on the country now, that's affecting businesses. The competitive aspect of the business, the market is folding up now. There are a lot of businesses they just surrendered. You can't get foreign exchange to stock your inventory. You can't fill your warehouse. You can't do business. You can't pay your rent. People just giving up.
Many businesses have shrunk.
Well, I want to make a comment, because Philip, you said that a friend of yours indicated that he has a 36-room hotel and a zero occupancy. Sandals come in, 720 rooms. Who is going to benefit from that? Only Sandals. Your friend is still not going to get his rooms occupied because they're going to Sandals. In terms of workers, is it that all the workers who are currently working in the hotels in Tobago are going to leave those jobs and shift to go and work with Sandals? So what happens to those hotels in terms of getting staff to do
Being
what
underserviced.
That's right.
But if I may add to that, Sandals, if it does come out, it will be another 3 to 5 years, maybe 5 to 7 years before it's actually open.
How does Tobago survive in the interim?
Right find now a
What is
solution to
what
the
is the
problem.
new name of that hotel? That
Magdalena.
Magdalene.
That they built on the windward side of the island. That is draining resources just to keep it alive because sea blast murdering it. You don't have a beach that you could use that you could.
No, the beach
so,
is not user friendly.
So the reality is they've made these mistakes time and time again and left the people to pick up the cost.
Yes.
The people of Trinidad and Tobago need to understand, and I want to say this, and I don't think it can be said enough. We've spent almost $3 trillion. We've spent almost $3 trillion, and over the past 55 years. And if you're honest with yourself, and Suzette said it earlier, even if you're not concerned about your own self, be concerned about your family. We've spent over the past 55 years $3,000 billion. And look around this country and tell me, what do we have to show for that? We've built highways in this country, and they go into the Guinness Book of World Records for the most expensive highways in the world. We're notorious and infamous for the bad things. And it's because we allow governments to get away with literal and figurative murder.
We don't hold them accountable.
Well, there are no systems for holding them accountable.
And that's the question.
Right.
We need to find those systems.
Who do you go to and say, sir, the Minister of Finance has said that the Controller of Customs is corrupt. We want an investigation. Because instead of allowing the Minister of Finance to come with a wide net and take money from everybody else, we want to say streamline the operation of customs and excise, because the Minister of Finance says the reason he needs this increased tax on used tires is because of the corruption in customs. So let's fix the corruption in customs. And we pretend in this country like all of these problems are massive problems that can't fix in a nation that wouldn't qualify as a county in a developed world. All of our little fiefdoms, all of these little gangster lands could be undone and redone. Our entire police service could be fired tonight. We need to really realize we can't continue to say, well, boy, I don't trust police because some police rogue and some police corrupt. Start it over. Well, boy, I don't understand how the courts is work because it take 4 years, 5 years, 9 years, 17 years for a rape, 27 years for a break-in. Undo it. Start it over. We're dealing with a country where nothing works.
Nothing works.
And that is an indication of failure from management, and management being the government. If you can't manage such a small country, 1.5 million people, it is not impossible. If the right people are at the helm, we can get it done. We have the systems, we have the intelligence, we have the human capital. We can do it. We just need to put the right people there.
If I may get back again to Tobago situation,
Yes,
right?
Tourism,
tourism, yes, Tobagonians, I am here and I'm going to speak on Tobago's behalf. Tobago's tourism began a precipitous decline from 2007, and it has not stopped. I think the only things left is for them to just lie down in a grave and be covered up with
but it's unfair. And Trinidadians owe Tobago support. We are pouring out our bleeding heart for countries all over the Caribbean and all over the world, and and I agree, have empathy and compassion for everybody else. But there are people in Tobago that are quietly, silently going crazy. They have no one to turn to. The banks preying on them. This guy.
Mr. Patino lost his property, the bank has foreclosed on it.
That is the saddest story I've heard.
You know what's very sad as well? I have seen Secretary after Secretary of Tourism come and took up the portfolio, and they have done nothing, zero impact whatsoever in turning around the decline of tourism. I've seen 4 of them over the last 4 different THA elections, and zero improvement.
Susan guesstimated 1.5 million. Adrian Alexander, he's no relative of mine, I don't think, but he just said 1.4 million. The minister says 1.3 million.
1.3.
How come we cannot count how much people is in this country? Something as simple as knowing. How could you predict? How could you build a healthcare sector based on being able to treat with a finite number of persons and not know what that number is?
More specifically, how can you target or gauge what your tax collection is going to be if you don't know how many persons you're collecting taxes from? So then that revenue that you're looking at is either under or overestimated.
Correct.
Now, Ken, the question I wanted to ask you, because I know Tobago is a contentious issue right now, and we have Rohan Sinanan to thank for that. So,
I don't think by himself though.
no, you know what? I am going to
it's more than
be
a
very
guy.
individual with my assignment of blame, because somebody has to take blame for what is going on in this country. And we cannot do it by general rule anymore. It has to be specific. Tobago is a marketable product.
Yes.
If you were given the $2.1 billion right now that has been allocated for Tobago to work with the market, the tourism market for Tobago, what would you change and what would you implement?
Well, as you know, Tobago has 76% of the workforce working for the THA. And what is, everybody's fully aware of it, it's called non-productive work. You go to THA offices, you see 100 persons sitting back there in their phones doing absolutely nothing. We have CPEP and URP cutting grass in the morning. The grass is not even being used to feed animals. So it is
Or to make compost.
Yeah,
and
nothing
you can use it for
whatsoever.
farming.
So I would take all those people and put them to productive work.
Right,
You know,
community empowerment,
Yes.
enrichment of the community, utilizing local businesses, turning the money around in the economy, making it a little bit more stable.
Or use that labor force to plant food. Tobago at present does not support itself.
Tobago as an island should be the tourist capital of the world. Tobago as an island should be the #1 tropical sun, sea, sand and surf destination on planet Earth. We're supposed to be leading the world tourists in ecotourism. We have the first preserved, nature reserve rainforest in the world. We have the
Lowest carbon footprint
the
as an
wonder,
island.
the wonder of the world that is the nylon
The
pool.
nylon.
We have Pigeon Point,
la-
no man's land that they want to decimate, and I can't know it better than you because
And
you're
the largest brain coral
The
in the
largest
world.
brain coral.
Okay? We used to have manta rays at one time in Speyside, and divers from all over the world will come to Tobago to dive. As a matter of fact, I moved to Tobago for diving. I bought a dive shop, and that was my profession for many years.
But you're on the ground in Tobago, so have you heard from the people? I mean, what is the perspective from the people based on what has been allocated for Tobago?
The business people are crying. And what has happened is, for some reason, and I keep saying it, and people felt I was being negative, I felt that the THA was undermining the success of the private sector.
What do you think should happen with the THA then? Should it be decentralized or
THA
abolished?
needs to be abolished.
Needs to be abolished.
Abolished. THA needs to be abolished. Tobago needs to decide, and I'm saying this again because Tobagonians need to have their voices heard. This nonsense about taking a pittance of a salary from the THA in exchange and in lieu of your real inheritance. Tobago, at one time, do your research, was the most expensive real estate on planet Earth. Do your research. Tobago is, Tobagonians are supposed to be multi-millionaires just on that tourist product. Tobago, they have countries like Antigua and St. Vincent that rely on cruise ship. Why are we not in the cruise ship business? Why are we not bringing in 1 million visitors a year just in the cruise ship?
Well,
1 million by 1 million is what? And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about that kind of development in Tobago, and a development that says, hey, we will give you financial support to open your guest houses, your bed and breakfasts, your restaurants, your tour guide services, all of these types of businesses that work with, come and do your goat races and your donkey riding. And I'm just saying that the function of the Tourist Development Organization should be to count in the hundreds of thousands. How do we bring visitors to Tobago and not be in the hotel building business and not have a Minister of Finance tell us in the budget that a negotiation with a sandals that eviscerates an environment is somehow a success for a country. We've elected, and I just want to put this on the table, we've elected fools to office time and time again. We've elected them time and time again. We've built the Trinidad economy on oil and gas that will not serve us again. And now we're trying to build the Tobago economy on Sandals Hotel. So basically handing all of the people on the entire island to Butch because there's nothing after that.
Well, you know, funnily enough, I was sent to do my research, and I find it interesting that the minister did not speak to the fact that the Prime Minister in June 15, 2016 stated as follows. Further, the government was moving to conclude negotiations for building 1 or 2 marinas in Tobago. while we will spend some substantial amount of Trinidad and Tobago dollars establishing that economic entity for its life, it will be earning foreign exchange. How come that was not mentioned in the budget? One, is it that is going to come like a thief in the night, the same way the $3 million refurbishing of the Gulf course came like a thief in the night after the budget was read? Is it that we're going to hear about this after?
But you see that budget, and the reason I'm going to ignore that is because these people are experts at distracting the population. And they're going to distract them with foolishness. And I think this golf course development, you know what? $3 million spit in the ocean compared to the kind of money we're going to spend this year, $60 billion again.
Yeah, but
and I'm not saying that it's correct.
Right.
I'm not saying that it is right. I'm just saying that I'm not going to be distracted by it. But you raise better issues here. And we have to look at this. You want to see success? Every year, the people of Charlottesville put on a fishing competition. You know about this? And that takes a whole week or a weekend and everybody gets involved. I know people who are part of the organization committee, and it's a massive thing. And that's just one thing. Tobago has things. I mean, Tobago wedding and goat race and these things.
That's a nice event.
But these are things that we could sell to the world. We've elected to office and put in charge of Tobago. Tobago should have been treated with kid gloves. We shouldn't move through Tobago and hammer everything into place that we want. Tobago shouldn't have a Brazil-style carnival. Tobago should have a Tobago carnival.
But one of the problems with Tobago, in my view, is that the government tries to get involved with too many things. They're supposed to be the facilitator for private sector
And not the implementer.
And not the implementer.
That's the point.
They shouldn't be owning fish
Magdalena
depots,
Magdalena
They should be
brands.
holding no assets.
Nothing at
That
all.
should be
No
only
assets.
in the hands of the people.
Government has no business.
Yes.
Facilitate
Yes.
business.
Government has no business being in business.
Yeah.
Government has no business competing with the private sector. Everything that is Clico and CL Financial, that was to be divested already. We've been in that business for too long.
You know that the THA built several fish depots around Tobago, and if you go to each of them, they're just sitting there languishing.
Yes.
Right?
Because the name of the game for the THA, and I said somebody should write a book about Melchir. The name of the game for THA is to take central funds and give it to contractors, give it to finances, give it to friends and supporters, while holding the rest of the population of Tobago hostage on a pittance salary. Because you have the country isolated and alone. How could you have hotels in the best tourist destination in the world with zero occupancy? That is a crime against the people. We should be firing the government for that.
Yes.
And I'm saying to Tobago, you need to elect a government to power that will pull Tobago closer. We need to give Tobago the ability to know that the cost of living in Trinidad and the cost of living in Tobago is the same. I keep saying a brick, a block, and a banana must be on the same on the ground here and there. I do not understand why goods for Tobago have to come to Trinidad first. Why does that make sense? Why Tobago don't have a port that they could do their own imports of their own tires?
Good. Well, why don't you then apply the funding that you're going to be using for a Togo Manzanilla development and a the Togo development and the Churchill Roosevelt Manzanilla development. Why don't you use that and see about getting some sort of investigation done into having a port facility in Tobago to facilitate that sort of supply and demand?
Or even just making the port more, expanded.
Yes. Or use what we have, expand,
Without the NAR, Tobago wouldn't have a port.
Exactly.
It is the NAR that gives Tobago a port. I mean, these things, it is so obscene that this is our legacy, that these are the things that we have to say politically. If anybody in Trinidad, and I'm asking everybody viewing, I'm passing out to you now, but you know what I want to get some things that you all are proud of that any government has done, that you think, not just for a subsect of society, but on a national level that developed Trinidad and Tobago. I'd like to know.
But if I recall, a lot of studies were done on expanding the port in Tobago. But where are those reports?
Just studies.
But the money has already been paid.
Studies.
For the studies to be done.
We've done national security studies, hundreds of millions of dollars. We've done a rapid rail study. That is most notorious. That's about $500 million for a study. Studies are an industry on their own in Trinidad.
We have so many white papers
that
are basically the schematics for solving some of the national issues that we have, and they're shelved.
Yes.
It shows that the people who have been charged with the responsibility of making Trinidad and Tobago a developed country are not intellectually capable of getting the job done.
True.
And so what we need to do is we need to identify who are the people. Forget names, we're looking at capability. And we need to look at people that are capable and passionate enough about wanting change for Trinidad and Tobago. And that person might very well be you. It can be any one of us here, but it has to be someone that has the well-being of Trinidad and
But Robert
Tobago.
Amaro told me today, he sold Pigeon Point to the Ansa Macau Group for $60 million, and a couple of years later they got $125 million
Yes.
from TG.
Yes.
How do you win these lottos? How do you get your name down to win these lottos?
You need to be shortlisted as a financier.
But Philip, if you come into Scarborough, let's say like now it's 9 o'clock, and you got off the boat and you saw the state of Scarborough, you would be shocked. There were tourists who come off of cruise ships into Scarborough, and then they will ask you, well, where's the capital? Because they can't believe this is the capital of Tobago. It's in a deplorable condition.
And it reminded me, and I just want to say, we went down Point Fortin, and you literally felt like you were traveling back in time.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing along the way to the destination to make you feel like we were anywhere close to being a developed nation. How could you treat your people like that?
If you are not better off than you were 10 years ago, or you have digressed as a country or an establishment,
Sometimes wrong.
then you know that you cannot look to the same people who are running the country to be the ones to take us forward. We have to identify what we need change in this country and how we need a change. Coming up with what the issues are and not bringing forth any solutions is also counterproductive. And what I'm trying to, the reason why I'm asking Ken all these questions is because I firmly believe that if Tobago is marketed properly, it can be a foreign exchange earner for Trinidad and Tobago.
Massive
But before you market it, you must first create a desirable product.
That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm getting at. How and through which group are we going to create this marketable product?
Well, the government, and I keep saying this, I have said it on several forums in Tobago, the government has to find capable, competent people and put them in key positions in the THA to effect that kind of a change.
What if it was a private
and that's
entity?
And that's the point. I don't understand why the stakeholders, forget Chamber of Commerce and all of these fancy brands, why you can't get a united stakeholders group that stands up for Tobago.
Somebody who's passionate about Tobago like you.
The THA blocks all of that.
Well, they need to be removed because that, therefore, so we've identified that the THA is the obstacle to progress.
But how could the THA? How could the THA? We have courts in this country. You could get an injunction. You could get injunctive relief against the government. Dumas just proved it at the Privy Council. It is time for us to challenge all of these dinosaur institutions that are retarding the progress of the country. That's why we're asking for 41 seats, I mean, it's not because we want 41 seats, but it's because you need to be able to undo and redo all of these things. Tobago needs a redevelopment that puts finance in the hands of the people so that they could develop their own tourist product and use their own entrepreneurial skills. Because the banana boat man, he closed down after 25 years. That was something that it had become a landmark, and he had to close down. No tourists, no business, no funds.
Many people, if you come to Tobago, and I've known them because I first visited Tobago in 1987. I knew what it was look like. Where, as a matter of fact, what drew me to Tobago is the upward mobility in that tourism growth. I left New York. I was very happily in New York, and I came to Tobago, hung up my suit and tie, and I came and I put on a bathing suit and jumped in the water and started scuba diving. And that has totally been destroyed. We used to have 19 dive shops at one time. Now we're down to about 5 or 6.
Well, tourism, I
the
think,
scale of the destruction of tourism
is one of the 3 aspects we need to look at for diversification.
Absolutely. Tobago by itself could mine Trinidad and Tobago.
That's what I'm saying, and that's tourism as a product.
Yep.
Then we're looking at agriculture, food independence, food security, the reduction in the food import bill, empowering communities to become more sustainable through agricultural projects, and then we're looking at renewable resources.
The reason this government, does not want to look at agriculture as an option is because it is not in this government's best interest to lose political power to other tribal groups. And political economic power is what has determined that we don't grow our own food. So other minorities, seeing that opportunity, seize control, and now we import 90% of what we consume, and we can't afford it.
I think, what was the figure? I think I saw something like...
$8 billion US.
Yes. So,
But
But
when they talk about the imbalance of trade, if you take that food import bill out, we're already in a net positive.
Exactly.
So you take that food import bill out, and how do you do that? We have hundreds of thousands of acres of land idle. We have farmers. We know stories about farmers drink Gramazone, hang themselves, kill themselves. They have nothing to live for. This is what they know. And the Minister of Finance says that nobody wants to farm. That is madness. Because he finds his little partner and give them 100 acres in Chagaramas and call that farmland distribution. But we're watching all of you. We're going to come and undo all of that. Trinidadians need to understand that people taking farmland in this country, receiving farmland and then selling it second hand, third hand, flipping and making profit for land that they rented from the States for $100 a year and selling for $12 and $15 million. All of that have to stop. We need to go back to a point, and people thought that I was really, that I was bluffing when I said that if you put the Progressive and Power Party into office, all farmland that should be growing food for the nation need to be repurposed to the food stock.
But you know, Philip, we need again to put laws in place and enforce the laws to keep people honest. Because one of the biggest problems...
Enforcement is the issue. Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I will go back again to that article I mentioned, June 15, 2016, again the Prime Minister, where he said the following: how much tomato we go grow or plant, how much baigan we go plant, how much pumpkin we go plant. That is not to say, I like my cassava and my dasheen and my potato and my baigan. But in terms of talking about earning the foreign exchange to maintain the standard of living we have become accustomed to, we got to think big and move fast. And that is what Trinidad and Tobago is doing now under this government, which is his government. So all the talk about agriculture, he has no plans
that is what
of
happens.
agriculture
That's what
in this
happens when you
country.
saddle a donkey and put it in a horse race. And I'll tell you why. Because the 13th largest economy in the world is California by itself, separate and apart from the United States. If California was to break off, it is the 13th largest economy in the world. Its number one cash crop is cannabis. Medical marijuana. So if Mr. Imbert thinks that agriculture is just tomato and baigan, Mr. Imbert needs to understand, if you put all of our farmland to grow pawpaw and pomsity, we don't have enough land.
Yeah, but you see, it's not the finance minister, it's the Prime Minister who's making these comments. Rowley himself. And if it is coming from him, then what do you think is going to happen?
You have
a problem. Because he's not going to push it.
This is not a horse race, this is a donkey race.
Well, all right.
I was speaking with Shamla Maraj, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with her. We were discussing the idea of growing three food products in Trinidad that we import in the hundreds and thousands of tons annually: chana, red bean, and carrots. We can grow it here.
Of course.
And we can also export. So my question is, why is the Prime Minister focusing on what the problems are with agriculture immediately? We are looking for solutions, and food security is a big issue for a country.
Food independence is the only independence that is going to matter in the next 5 to 10 years.
When you have a government that focuses a lot of financial energy on national security and not food security, we have a problem.
And the problem is, the government wants control. This is not about managing the society anymore. The government wants control. We have too much government boots on the ground. We have more army than we need. We have more police than we need. And as Ken said earlier, and Susan alluded to, we have no enforcement of the laws. Correct. We have more laws than we need. When you see the lawyers sit down in their offices, all those hundreds of books behind them is the laws of the Republic of Trinidad. Millions of pages of laws. We have laws for everything. They found a law to lock up this boy for his Facebook post. They have laws for everything, but we have an absence of enforcement.
But they found a law for the boy. But what law is being applied to the finance minister who was intimidating and insulting the business community at the meeting on Tuesday? Did he break the law by chance?
Well, if he didn't, Stuart Young certainly did when he was engaging in borderline hate crime against Barry Barrett for his tablecloth. And then we see a picture of Keith Rowley in a similar tablecloth. I mean, these people, they just know how to be obscene. They just...
So they only apply when they want to.
And all they can focus on is appearance. Because that is what the government, present and past, has been concerned about. Appearance.
Right.
Nothing about productivity, nothing about the alleviation of crime, making it easier for a family to walk the streets at night. You're paying all these taxes and you cannot enjoy the benefits of a country. I mean, what use is it?
Ask your government. Home ownership. You skirt it. And then you say... Then you say the Minister of Finance is so out of touch. He is our Marie Antoinette. I am not joking. The man is so out of touch. I remember once hearing the head of DOMA, Gregory Abood, refer to the economy of... He referred to the economy as a 500 Mercedes-Benz, but it's on blocks. You don't have tires, so you can't go nowhere. And this is how out of touch these people are. But our Minister of Finance said that $2,500 a month is a mortgage payment in reach of everybody. But $2,500 a month is the sum total of what you could earn as a minimum wage worker. And the vast majority of people who need a stake and a stand and a hand up in this country are the minimum wage earners. Because if you give these people hope and opportunity, then you could start to tackle crime. Because it is the lowest levels of society that's going to come and move the cocaine out of the pirogue. It is the lowest levels of society that's going to pick up the gun and run in the Chinese restaurant and rob the patrons. The reason you can't go out now, the reason you can't go on a beach, this is a tropical island. You can't take your friends and go and walk on a beach. People would say you're insane. If you were to get kidnapped or raped in Trinidad and Tobago, they would say you look for it. So much do we expect that crime is a natural part of our country, and it shouldn't be.
Correct.
We've isolated our people. We've given them nothing to live for. We've given... Today I'm talking in Cocorit again, and I'm getting a special place in my heart to the people of Cocorit. Because the people of Cocorit now have been trapped by a highway. And across the road from the highway where Bayside Towers is and where Polymer used to be, and this guy was telling me today, he said on a hot day like today, all the boys from the community would go across the highway and then go and swim in the water right out in front there. So but all the beachfront has been reclaimed now as property, no problem, fine. But you have all these young men, 5, 8, 10,000 young men, with nothing to do but sit on the block in Hudson. So when guns start to bark, why are you thinking about it? It's because you've left these people with no leadership. We have governments with no vision for the people. We have no plans for the poor. We have no compassion for the young. We've left our people with nothing. And the criminals in the country have realized and seized upon them as a human resource. And that's why we have crime. Come back to home ownership. We keep saying home ownership is the key. Home ownership is the solution. You give every Trinidadian an opportunity. And I'm telling you, give a security guard the opportunity to own a home and raise his family. He will be the best security guard in this country. Because he don't want to lose his job. He's raising his family. Make the basic food items. Somebody asked me, why are you upset about the budget? When you have a headache and you go to the drugstore to buy headache medication, that's going to go up 25% because of the raise in diesel. The toothpaste, the toilet paper, I'm not even reaching food yet. Everything that it takes for you to make up a life is going up by at least 25% because of the increase in diesel. Your transportation, your family's transportation, if you don't own your own car, it's going up in taxi fares. If you own your own car, it's going up in fuel costs, everything. If your income, if your salary doesn't go up to match it, what do you do? The people who live on $3,000, the retirees, what are they to do now that all of the medication in Superfarm and Starlight drugs is going up 15, 20, 25% because the trucks that bring it in running on diesel?
What I found laughable was when he talked about, we're going to assist, low income to get their own homes, and that they were going to negotiate with the banks for the mortgages and so on. You say that on one hand, and then on the next hand, you drop a 35% tax on the banks. Wow. How are they now going to be able to work out a good mortgage for the lower income person when you've just dropped a hefty tax on them?
The
Wasting
indication
time.
of a healthy economy is the strength of its middle class.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are thinking about middle class, you have to put it from this perspective. The elite or upper class is not going to drop down to middle class status. It is the lower class that is going to alleviate themselves out of poverty and become part of the middle class. And when that happens, you are tackling crime, you're tackling poverty, and you are increasing the middle class, strengthening an economy. And I am of the opinion that the middle class is under attack.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
When you look at the situation, and I want to show you the biggest attack on the middle class is the lack of credit that stimulates business.
Yeah.
And the absence of credit, dovetailing with an absence of foreign exchange, pretty much destroys your business.
Yes.
I mean, in Tobago, you have no visitors, you have no foreign exchange, you're dead. Go away. You're dead. But in Trinidad, the middle class has no access to credit. Why? Because at some point, the opportunities in the economy dried up. The banks no longer had a responsibility to play fair. Mm-hmm. The banks supposed to, I remember a time when you could say, if I put $100,000 on fixed deposit for 10 years, when I go back 8 years later, it'll be $200,000. You get 10% interest. Once you make a certified deposit and you say, they're giving you 10% plus.
Right.
There is no amount of money, unless you are part of the fortunate few that have interest or shares in a bank. There's no amount of money. The banks don't want your money. They tell you, don't bring your $10 million and ask me for interest. You have no interest to get.
No interest.
What the banks are doing now is they are operating like money warehouses.
Yes.
You could rest your money here and we will charge you a parking fee. Mm-hmm. Somebody sent me a thing today. He said, Philip, I was out of the country for 3 months. This account that I had reached to zero. And then every month they took out $78. And you see the money coming out of the man's account and driving him further and further into overdraft. And he asked me, how is this legal? Mm-hmm. This is them stealing money. Because the only management that they have to manage his account now, because it has no money in it. Mm-hmm. So the only management that he needs is them managing his overdraft.
That's right.
That he doesn't have. He has an overdraft to pay them for the privilege of having no money. Mm-hmm. And that is insane. And the banks are charging you. They're charging you fees. I hear people complaining that you go in a bank and you don't have an account there, $25 to change your check.
Mm-hmm.
So what if the check is $50?
Yeah.
The bank just took half.
Mm-hmm.
You know something interesting? I spoke with some people who actually work with the government, and they must have a bank account to have their money deposited into the account. They says, no, when it's paid, I'm going to withdraw every single penny. So nothing for the bank to get a fee from. So this is now people have found a way, you know.
Yeah, but they're putting themselves at risk. And
yes,
I told this guy, and I'll never forget, I said, you're putting yourself at risk to getting robbed in the street. He says that it's either that or get robbed in air-conditioned comfort. And the truth of the matter is, the government, instead of taxing the bank, the government was supposed to sit with the Bankers Association, you see.
Right.
Paul Embert plays smart with shipping. He went to the Chamber of Commerce to read the Riot Act, but he had no Riot Act to read there. The real place to read the Riot Act is in the finance sector. And everybody in the business community could have told him that. And that's why they're so upset with him. Because that 35% tax that he put on the banks, pass it on to them. Mm-hmm. He just increased the cost of doing business again. But let's come back to this. If you were a Minister of Finance in a country that wanted to be functional, you recognize there are 2 things going on. We have no credit in the system and people not getting interest on their money. Mm-hmm. I would tell you, you are supposed to, through Central Bank, the Ministry of Finance, you're supposed to lay down the law that banks have to pay 3% short term, 6 to 7% medium term, 10% long term, interest on all depositors' funds. That way, and you cannot charge the fees that you charge in the government, the central bank, anywhere else in the world, has the authority to regulate rates and fees. You can't come up with a charge and just apply it just so. Correct. RBC put the country on notice, and I hear the central bank saying, we don't know about this. You didn't come to us with this. Mm-hmm. And it's like the bank's just doing what the hell they want now. Yeah. If you had a bank that their funds had to pay interest on, they would now have to lend this money out again. That's how they would get their interest. And that will put credit back in the economy. Small business people, you are a small business person now in this country. I'll tell you something. I don't want to talk my business, but we had a project that had $1.5 million in fixed equity and $12 million in receivables from blue chip accounts and couldn't access $1 million. They want money for money.
There is a system in the United States which is a multi-billion dollar industry. And that is accounts receivables purchasing. That can work very well for companies, especially in an economic crunch like this, where they are buying your receivables at a discounted price.
We would normally run for an hour, we would have finished at 9 o'clock, but because of all the little stops and starts at the beginning, now that we're in the conversation, we're going to let it run a little later, and we apologize. So for those of you who are eating up a lot here later, it's for that.
So it can help free up capital for businesses that cannot have access to credit and so on. And the purchasing of receivables at a discounted price is a big business, and it's also very fair because the amount of time that you take to collect your receivables, let's say it's a 90-day period. In that 90 days that you have overdraft facility charges, you have operational costs and so on. If you have a company that buys your receivables at a 10% discount, it means that what you would have paid over 3 months would have been 3 times the cost of operating as a business for 3 months. So you need to now say, make a decision. Yeah, it's a way to manage your money. So you can say, I can sell my receivables and get this money immediately, turn it over and make more money and recover that 10%. Or I can wait the 3 months, collect the funds, and have spent, and in the meantime, I would have spent 40 or 30 to 40%.
I would have used the money twice.
Yeah.
And I remember, 70s and 80s, that existed, especially for people who were holding receivables for like Hilo.
Yeah.
Because Hilo were notorious. They would take 90 and 120 days to pay you. And if you could turn over that money 3 and 4 times before you get that check, it's worth your while to discount it.
Yeah.
So that doesn't exist in Germany anymore?
Well, I have not really seen that as a facility being offered by most of the financial institutions. I mean, I will not say that it is the actual case because I'm not involved in an industry that requires me to hold customers that take credit from my business. But as you stated, the banks need to be regulated. That is a question. That is without question. They need to be regulated. Then we have to look at how we're going to stimulate the economy by using small and medium businesses. They're the least costly when you look at economic stimulation. And Colm Imbert, I think, was the one that made the statement that the businesses of Trinidad and Tobago expect the government to pay for their goods and services. I'm not sure how he arrived at that, and that has left me baffled. And I'm searching the internet and searching the newspaper, trying to come up.
Who said it?
Sorry?
You're talking about it too fast.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll be a little slower. So I'm searching the internet and I'm looking in the newspaper to see whether or not there's some justification for that comment, and I'm wondering how he arrived at that because I'm in business and I have not received any assistance from the government in terms of procuring goods and services.